Hi, welcome to CE Fintech Tour of UNCHAIN, where we try to unify and interlink the CE. That's the mission of UNCHAIN. And in their CE Fintech Tour, we'll be going through various markets which make up the CE and highlights through one, two, maybe three panels in each market, the key players in the ecosystem, what's going on in the ecosystem, where we're going. We'll start today with Moldova, and we'll have two panels. First panel will be on the role of banks and fintechs in the ecosystem, and the second panel will be on nurturing the startups ecosystem of Moldova. The first panel coming up now will be hosted by Stefan Nistor of Fintech Moldova. Take it away, Stefan.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this journey with you guys. I'm very happy to be part of the on-chain ecosystem. I know about you since the first year that on-chain was launched, and I think it's a very important event to bring the whole region together. My name is Stefan Nistor. I'm the founder and coordinator of Fintech Moldova. We work with the local stakeholders in terms of developing the fintech ecosystem. We try to work with the banks, with the national bank, with startups, also with local international associations in order to help Moldova present itself on a larger scale, regional as well as globally. Some developments in terms of fintech in Moldova. We could start with some regulatory advancements that happened recently. The most important is probably the adoption of PSD2 through a new law, which is the purpose of which is to bring us closer to the EU ecosystem and replicate the open banking directives that were implemented in the EU previously. Being a bit later, our panelists will probably tell you more about this, but being a bit later, it helps us kind of learn from the mistakes that can be done in other places in order to implement it in Moldova better and more efficient, and also to help the banks and other important players to implement it more efficiently and more and better, let's say. Other things on the regulatory advancements, we have progress on the EQAC legislation, which we are hoping to have some progress this year, and the new law in terms of crowdfunding, which helps and allows crowdfunding companies to launch crowdfunding platforms and facilitate participation of the public in crowdfunding activities, including financing of startups and investments in private companies. We have all these developments, regulatory developments, help banks and the local startups to have strategic collaborations. In the future, we will probably hear, if you haven't already, about partnerships between banks and local startups in terms of open banking implementation and development. Also, our new instant payment system, which was launched by the National Bank last year, which also provides a lot of opportunities for banks and local startups to collaborate and to provide solutions for the public and the business as well. And this also opens a lot of opportunities for financial inclusion for SMEs as well as for underserved sections of population, so to put it this way. Today we are joined by various panel. So we try to include all the sections of this ecosystem, including the banks, the National Bank, somebody from the tech sector, as well as somebody from the international ecosystem, in order to compare the local Moldovan ecosystem with the regional. In our case, we have somebody from Romania, Andrei from Barreda, and we also have Jose from IFC, who will give us a more broader perspective from his experience globally. From the local ecosystem, we have Alexandra Sidorenco from the National Bank. We have Petar Stefanovic from Molindconbank, And if he hasn't joined us already, we hope to have Ilia Dragan for Salt Age a bit later on. And I will give the opportunity to each of them to present themselves in a few minutes, and then I think we can start the discussion per se. So we can start with Alexandra, maybe.
Beautiful people developing fintech. I'm going today to provide regulatory about all the initiatives going on here in Moldova.
Thank you. Petar, if you could present yourself, please.
Yeah, hi. I'm relatively new to Moldova, coming from actually Serbia from some 4 months ago, but it's quite exciting and a quite good place to work. And I hope to give you the outtake of what we are doing here currently in Mikabe, being one of the biggest players and the most important systematic banks in the country. Thanks.
Thank you. Jose?
Yeah, my name is Jose de Barreda. I've been working for the IFC for the last almost 11 years. And we have been supporting Moldova for the last year or so in various aspects, ranging from supporting the central bank with different regulatory aspects, including instant payments, open banking, and so on, the banking association. And we are also working with Fintech Moldova, supporting their different events, as well as participating in different roundtables and also in different panels as the one that we are participating today.
Thank you so much. Andrei?
Hi everyone, my name is Andrei Stoian. I'm a director for payments and cash management within BRD Société Générale in Romania. I have an extensive banking career with another 18 years in Citibank, and I deal with the corporate payments, card acquiring, online banking systems, ecosystem, and a few many other things behind. So quite closely working with the fintechs that are providing solutions within this space. And I truly appreciate all the companies that come and try to bring innovation to the space and make us move together our solutions to the client.
Perfect. Thank you so much. If Ilia joins, please include him into the discussion later on. And to kick off, I would like to start actually with Alexandra from the National Bank. The regulator is always kind of the main player when it comes to the fintech and financial ecosystem in general. And all the ideas that the fintech ecosystem might have, it always has to go through the filter of the regulator. And now we are happy to have somebody at the National Bank who is actually working on development of the fintech ecosystem, much less on the I don't know, on the filtering part and more on the developing part. So I would like to ask Alexandra, in terms of collaboration, how does the National Bank sees itself in the next in the current situation in the next couple of years? And where does it see itself as the proponent of the fintech ecosystem in Moldova? So, what does it do to encourage the fintechs and the banks in Moldova to develop more fintech solutions? And how does it see itself as the proponent of the ecosystem in Moldova?
Thank you very much, Stefan, for the question. Well, I can see from my perspective of our fintech division, I can say that past few years have demonstrated well, the critical importance of structured and continuous dialogue among all the stakeholders, actually, banks, fintechs, and service providers, and even technology companies does pretty often citizen. If the player contributes in specific way on shaping the market capabilities. So we believe that only through collaboration we can ensure a stable growth. This is why when I came recently in the National Bank staff, we started by establishing a platform of collaboration. We initiated a quarterly workshop with the payment service providers to identify growth opportunity, address friction points that we can observe, and even develop actionable solution. So I can say that even that first exercise already had bring on the table some new business opportunities, of course, knowledge sharing and improvement in market practices. Well, while we are still need to be neutral in any kind of commercial negotiation, we are taking active role in eliminating any regulatory uncertainty, I would say, and bring knowledge bridges on gaps that exist. All this to enable a smoother collaboration. Um, and a lot of initiatives going on. I hope I will have chance to talk a bit more about them, including open banking, instant payment system that it is in place already in Moldova, and even ACA regulation that is now mean to provide much more confidence in our system, financial system.
Of course, we will come back with you. We'll come back to you with more details on that. And now I would like to switch to Petar, if he could tell us more about the challenges that he sees as a incumbent bank in Moldova in terms of adopting fintech innovations. I know that you are relatively new in the team, but maybe you have already seen some first challenges or first hurdles that banks, and you being one of the biggest banks in Moldova, sees in adopting fintech solutions in Moldova.
Thank you, Stefan. So basically, when you're a bank, the main hobby and the main excuse for adopting anything is like, you go, oh, we have such a difficult national bank. And it's not that we have Alexandra here, but honestly, as a foreigner who had quite few contacts with national banks all over the world, national bank here is quite cooperative and it's quite progressive. And again, it's not since Alexandra is with us, but I honestly do think that. And you can see that in some things which were already kind of adopted and the things which are in preparation right now. I would say that in this regard, the regulatory adaptation has to be like to maintain on this. To be maintained on this level, because I mean, we all hope to see Moldova on a fast train to EU, and this means also, getting in line with what the EU regulation has on the table. But on more practical points, the main problem is what you wouldn't expect is the customer trust and the digital adoption. I mean, and this is quite interesting for me. In some ways, it's a quite advanced market, usage of mobile banking apps, even in the digital loans of retail, quite high. But again, when you look at, outside the Chisinau, still there's a space to improve the digital payments, non-cash payments, etc., etc. So, I mean, I would say the customer trust, we need to work on that one. And of course, with all the incumbent banks, you have the integration with the existing legacy systems. That's a pain. Some of the banks, as we know, they decide to, split the stories. Some try to wrestle with the fact that, their legacy system needs to be improved. But this is quite a thing, and we did the migration of our core system a year ago. It was finished, so it was a huge job. But it's a necessary step if you want to move forward. And maybe the last one that I would point out, the market scale. I mean, Moldova is not a super huge market, but it's a diamond in the rough. So in whatever you're doing here, you have to do it smart. You have to have a good ROI in your mind, a good business case, and it has to make sense for the locals, because people often underestimate this. We're globally, but you have to think locally. Here, if you try to just copy paste something from Romania or from neighborhood countries like Ukraine, even Bulgaria, it will not work 100%. It has to be adapted to local flavors, to local needs, and to the local market. So that's it.
Great. Okay, thank you. Since you mentioned customer trust and Romania in the same kind of discussion, I would like to segue to Andrei. And I have two questions in one, if you will allow me. First of all, I would like to know, in the recent period, maybe since the pandemic, how did Barreda address the customer trust issue in Romania? Sorry, if there was a customer trust issue in Romania in general, if you have different strategies for different demographic of people. I'm assuming that people that are more advanced in age have less trust in digital solutions rather than the young ones. So I'm wondering if you have any strategies, different type of strategies for these two different demographics of people. And also, if you don't mind telling me a little bit about how you navigate the regulatory framework in Romania, and is there a more frictionless collaboration between the National Bank of Romania and banks when it comes to fintech and fintech solutions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I will try to overarch the first question that you asked. Although I'm coming from a corporate space, some of the solutions that we're offering, they go into the consumers and to all types of consumers. The way they interact with the bank, the services that they access, you can think from the basic cash deposits, so on and so forth. Indeed, we did see a shift coming from the pandemic, and the shift came in two ways, let's say. One was the fact that it opened up the technology to much more people. It was a bit of a push, but it made them realize that there are easier ways to do some of the things related to the banking ecosystems in comparison to what they were doing before. When the pandemic left, we did see some of them coming back to the old habits, but some of them still remained entangled in the more digital ecosystem, and thus we won new clients on this digital space. Indeed, you always need to take into consideration all the type of population, let's say. I mentioned cash a bit earlier. In our part of the world, cash is still a bit of a king, although we do see the need diminishing continuously. If we look at some more advanced countries from this space, let's say the example of Sweden and so on, we see the fact that they did end up in an almost zero cash space, but then they realized some parts of the population, you're talking, Stefan, about the inclusion a bit earlier and so on, we need to still let them access these services and operate in the way that they are accustomed to and that they can do it, because the change that came in the past few years was dramatic in terms of how digital let's say functionalities are being absorbed into not only the banking space but everywhere else, and not everybody can cope in the same pace to absorb all this new way of doing things, doing business, accessing the day-to-day activities and so on. I think I need to come back to the second part of your question, which related to the Romanian regulator and how we interact with them. To be very frank, there is a very good cooperation. I believe we have someone quite similar with Alexandra on the Romanian front, very much open. Of course, you will be shown the stick if you don't deliver what you should be delivering in terms of the regulatory requirements. But at the same time, the purpose is to help the market grow in a sustainable and safe way. But all of us need to go in the same direction. And I do believe that fintechs are here to help and to support, because as much as the banks want to do everything, and many banks are more general banks, let's say, in terms of services being offered, the pressures that come even from the regulatory space, where you need to direct your IT resources into some particular projects, you can never be that efficient or that digital into each and every small sub-segment of activity that you are doing. That's why fintechs are here to support the ecosystem and to bring some value added, both on the part of clients, but also on the other side of banks, if they know how to partner together. And I'm going to kind of wrap it up with this.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick question, follow-up question. How do you see, we know a little bit about the Romanian fintech ecosystem. We know some players. We have startups from Moldova who emigrated in Romania, such as Fagor and others. How do you see the collaboration between banks and the fintech ecosystem in Romania? Is it more on the theoretical part, or do you have any kind of, if there is something practical you could talk about, and if you are allowed to, I don't know. Maybe you have some examples of collaborations between Barreda and some Romanian startup or fintech provider.
Now, I'm gonna be honest. Many banks can see the fintechs as competitors, and indeed, in some particular niches, they can be. At the same time, this is natural, and you get a player that is very focused on a niche activity, and indeed, it can be better than someone who is doing a great deal of more type of activities. If you learn how to get all the value added that fintechs provide and encompass it in the solutions that the bank can offer, then yes, you can come with a better product in front of the clients. And many banks, at the end of the day, started using fintechs in Romania on various fields, from client onboarding to know your customer, to open banking that we were talking about. And almost each and every field is prone to support or let's say some sort of interaction with fintechs. It's just a matter of strategy between banks of how they want to focus. But when you feel that a bank has a strong focus in a particular area and wants to be very quick on the market with either some products, some services, or to increase its level of interaction, digital interaction with clients, then in many occasions you will see behind the scenes there can be a fintech that is helping this to take place.
Okay, thank you. I would ask Jose if he could come into this topic and tell from his experience with global actors that you've been working on with, including central banks, and maybe startups. How did you see these collaborations between these three parties work in a successful manner that you think could be replicated or adapted to the Moldovan case? Maybe there are some emerging markets you've been working with that have this relationship more seamless and more I wouldn't say friendly because everybody seems to be friendly on this panel, but more harmonious.
Sure. I think there are a lot of powerful drivers for social inclusion, access to finance, digitizing payments, and so on. Globally, we have seen a lot of different opportunities, ranging from using alternative, data for lending. Companies like Tala in Mexico, India, but also in Kenya and Philippines. So as you can see in all 5 continents, or Credit B in India, they use alternative data like mobile usage, online behavior, etc., to offer credit to individuals without traditional, credit histories. I can tell from experience. I was participating in a few projects like this in Latin America and Paraguay in particular, and using just mobile data. It's super efficient and very, I would say, accurate in terms of providing a very good credit score. Cross-border payments, I think, is another good opportunity. Wise, Revolut, PaySend, and the likes have revolutionized remittances. And since Moldova reliance on remittances is rather large, I believe that local fintechs could build, any cost-effective transfer solution that could, copy the business model that these companies have been implementing very successfully in the past number of years. In terms of digitizing payments, as I mentioned, PayTeam, for example, or Gcash in the Philippines, they have partnered with governments to process subsidies, welfare payments very efficiently. So I think those examples provide, that participation between the main 3 stakeholders in this fintech ecosystem could work. If you ask me who could then be leading this, I would say that it's not about leading, but rather to lead in what they're best at. Let me give you an example. So fintechs, let's say Figura, which is a case in Moldova for P2P lending platform. They can bring agility, they can bring innovation and customer-centric solutions, whereas banks like Green Bank, Medias Banca, OTP, or the one that our colleague Andrei is leading, they have the trust and the regulatory experience and the infrastructure to scale fintech solutions that might not be sufficiently big if the solution of the fintech is launched, on a B2C scale alone. And then the National Bank of Moldova should create, as Alexandra was saying, a regulatory framework that could foster innovation. And we have very good examples. So we have already engaged the National Bank of Moldova with providing global experiences of regulatory sandboxes, ranging from Abu Dhabi to Singapore to the FCA in the UK, as well as other opportunities, for example, in the area of open banking. So in a nutshell, I think if we work together, and I forget to mention an institution like mine who can bring, this international experience, and we don't have any vested interest. So we are, let's say, I would say, a neutral broker between the different stakeholders to bring, Moldova to the next stage.
Great, thank you. Ilia, can you tell us, so just to give you a short resume of what we've been talking until now, basically about the collaboration between banks, the National Bank, and tech providers such as yourself, and also the latest developments in the regulatory framework and regulatory advancements in Moldova. So I would like to know your opinion as a fintech solution provider and somebody who is interested in developing the innovation part of the fintech ecosystem in Moldova, but also as globally. Salt AG is a global company. What do you see that are the gaps in the banking industry in Moldova when it comes to fintech infrastructure? Do you see any advancements in the last couple of years, maybe? And what do you think should be the next steps for the local banking industry in order to advance and to propel itself forward when it comes to the fintech infrastructure and solutions?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would not say that the financial sector in Moldova has any gaps versus the European market. We slack some areas, but the national bank is doing a great job. Taking into consideration the role of the regulator and the role of the banks and the role of the fintechs on the market. So the role of the regulator is not to my opinion, to facilitate innovation, to create new commercial business cases and think about the potential revenue or revenue growth of financial players. The role of the regulator is to create transparent rules which are secure, taking into consideration the customer security and the experience, etc. And the banks as a regulated entities are following the rules. To my knowledge, there's always an open dialogue across the regulated entities, the national banks across all the countries, where the banks, as an example of big financial players, come across the regulator and propose changes. And there's an open discussion, and this moves ongoing. The role of the fintech in this area is to a big degree quite small, unless they're not competing with the banks as TransferWise or Revolut, as mentioned before, because TransferWise and Revolut in some countries are already regulated as banks. So the role of the fintechs, since fintechs are precisely smaller units, as economical units in the market, for all that, they can be faster, and they are faster in regards innovation. And this is the value they bring on the market. And since they are not that regulated as banks, they might be faster. So the value is that any fintech can resolve or facilitate any ambitious in new products, in new user experience to a bank, where the regulator says a final yes or no, is the use case is applicable on the market, or there are some kind of security concerns, and the fintech can do it just faster. Then we come to the point as well, how a fintech can collaborate with the bank, and what is the procurement process on the bank side. Sometimes it takes 12 months to be a vendor for the bank. Sometimes it's a shorter period of time. But as bigger the bank is, as more challenging it is to become a vendor for the bank. And it makes the cost and the value, it's still the same value of the fintech, but the cost increases because there are multiple obstacles the fintech should pass in order to jump into a big bank as a part of the ecosystem, facilitate the innovation. As an example, like aggregate data across other banks, try to implement digital KYC for the end users, or create some kind of multi-banking solutions with categorization, get rid of legacy flows for credit scoring and decisioning via new channels of data aggregation, like transaction history from other banks, etc.
Okay, thank you. I will stay with Ilia, and I'll want to include Alexandra back into the discussion to talk a little bit about open banking. So if Alexandra could tell us what are the latest developments from the National Bank point of view in terms of open banking directive developments in Moldova, what are the challenges that you're having right now, what are some of the opportunities you're seeing, and what's going on. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I need to say that we have the regulation in place, and adopting that is, let's say, a significant part of EU integration. So adopting open banking is kind of harsh, let's say, challenge for all the marketplace. We need to admit that it presents challenges in terms of technical integration and regulatory compliance on meeting those PSD2 criteria. But in our opinion, it's also unlocks great opportunities for fair competition on the market. Even if how Ilia said, it's a quite small market, there are still great opportunities here. Through open APIs and customer of any, let's say, account service PSP will be able to manage his financial assets across any financial organization from the application that he decided he'd prefer. This increasing for him the flexibility and choice. And we understand that this shift will should intensify the competition. And financial service providers will need to fight for the customers and to differentiate themselves through, let's say, why not superior user experience, better security, and value-added services. This is the value that we see, the opportunities for the best interest of the customers. At the same time, we do believe that banking foster the collaborations because banks and fintech really can, let's say, leverage their unique strengths, like banks with their trust and infrastructure, and fintechs with their agility, innovation, and being faster. How also Ilia said, so they can unite their efforts in order to create seamless, customer-centric solutions. So, in order to harness all these benefits in the future, we need to set the foundation right now. This is why our main priority, our immediate focus right now is to ensure the effective implementation of API accessibility for all the players on the market. This will allow us, hopefully in the future, to build a interconnected financial ecosystem.
Thank you very much. And Ilia, I know that Société is at the forefront of when it comes to open banking. You are in touch with all the developments in the world when it comes to open banking. You know the situation in various regions in various countries. The European Union is working on a PSD3 directive, and they're migrating more towards open finance kind of regulatory framework as a development from the open banking. How do you see that Moldova should prepare for this future in which we are to prepare ourselves for the PSD3 potential integration in the coming future after we are done with the current version of the directive that the National Bank is working on?
To be honest, the PSD2 child in Europe took a lot of time, unless it came to the world, and then the whole European financial market found out that it's not that nice as it's supposed to be, or as everybody expected, and there were quite a big bunch of adjustments applied in the past couple of years with ABA opinions on how different things have to be handled because the regulation didn't cover this. If you compare how it was running in Moldova, as far as I remember, initially this discussion appeared in 2023 and was announced. Now we are in 2025 and there's the final deadline, even it was a couple of times shifted because we as well on the national level implemented the instant payments, which I believe, from my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, is a must for any success open banking story, this instant payment thing. So we've done already a slightly better job than Europe. So what we have a smaller market, so we can be faster. What we can do right now, working together with the National Bank of Moldova, why not issuing a PSD3 or PSD similar regulation, which comes faster and is fast implemented on the market. But the problem here, the biggest one, especially with PSD2, so PSD2 as a just obligatory thing. So the same rules have been applied to any size of institution. It's the same API a Deutsche Bank, as one of the biggest bank in Germany, has to publish, and a very small electronic money institutions with, let's say, 5,000 end users. I don't think this is a fair game, because like building up that API is comparable the same investment from both parties. But the impact on the markets, a big bank published the API, and the impact on the market when the small electronic money institution, small bank does, is uncomparable. Why we are applying the same rules for all the players? That's the first thing. This is where we can be actually smarter, and throughout that move faster with that. Then everybody is talking about open finance, PSD3. To be honest, like I'm in this topic for the last couple of years. We can ask anonymously 10 representatives of Europe and ask them what open finance is, and I believe we will get 10 different opinions. Still, like, what is it? Are we talking about data aggregation of all possible data the bank stores? Not sure about it. Are we talking about the access to non-payments accounts? Yes, but that's a straight way to go. It's quite simple, but that's not open finance. Are we talking about that a use case with digital KYC, that as soon as a user passes the KYC in one bank, he can on the fly open an account in any other bank by transferring his KYC information across the banks? Well, that might be the use case. That's interesting, but that will require, this open finance scope is so broad that it will require all the 2,500 financial institutions in Europe to adapt. It would require so much time unless the market going to benefit. So what we can do right now is to see what they're going to publish. Think about our internal use cases, which might have a deeper impact on our market, and do this step-by-step publications where the banks should benefit initially of the regulation, not the PSD2 use case. Throughout that, the banks as the biggest financial players will be motivated to implement it, will benefit commercially out of the use cases the new regulation provides, and we can move faster and actually provide a better ecosystem here than in Europe. I believe that's doable. Like, I understand this sounds a little bit crazy and ambitious, but I believe that's doable.
Let me support a bit what Ilia is saying.
I was gonna get there, so you can.
So
you can go.
indeed, if you think from a PSD2 perspective, a bank has theoretically no financial gain, and at the end of the day, all banks are here to make profit for the shareholders, like any company, not NGO, is doing. So you need to invest resources, times, and so on to develop those API, to maintain them, to maintain systems. And the bigger you are, the bigger like Deutsche you are, the more millions or even higher than this API calls you get throughout a year or a month, so on and so forth. So in order for your systems not to crash, you need to have the backbone behind it, and maybe the infrastructure was not ready. So long story short, you need to invest a lot. At the same time, there is no actual financial gain at the end of the day. Moreover, you risk of losing maybe some potential flows because the solution is built in a particular way. So that's why indeed there is no real motivation except for the regulatory angle here. Although morally speaking, indeed, we want to go in the right direction and to become more digital and to expose more digital aspects towards the clients. Now, if you talk about PSD3, where you can put an angle, a financial motivator towards the banks, then indeed, wherever there will be clear business cases in various areas, I don't know, create a country-wide repository for KYC, so that clients can easily move left, right, or their documents. Okay, everybody's putting some resources there, everybody will benefit from it. Or if you can start charging clients for additional services that you are building, because of course, to build you have some investments, then yes, the business case can be a positive one at the end of the day, and banks can put their money there, which means that they can be faster. But if you don't actually think of the banks as the ones that also need to gain from this transaction, or whatever we decide to put in place, then it's indeed going to be hard, and indeed it's going to take a long time, because throughout hundreds or thousands of IT projects that a large bank needs to manage and that needs to be prioritized, what will they prioritize? Some of them that bring a very tangible, real added value to the P&L, even to their direct clients, or the ones that theoretically will benefit the business of a fintech. And I'm trying just to put things into context here, just to understand what motivates all the players in the market. And with this, I'll stop.
I can completely support what you said, and this is why we rolled out the open banking compliance product in early 2019, completely with the vision understanding that the banks gonna struggle to roll out those APIs. Some banks did themselves, and many banks did themselves, especially tier 1 banks, bigger ones. And well, that was very expensive for those, but that was cheaper for those who used the fintech to set it up. That's clear. And like the PSD2 problem, as you said, like the banks are not benefiting. Finally, they are. Some of them are, but only a very minor group of banks are benefiting out of that. So they rolled out a multi-banking use case. So they now, some of the European banks see the whole financial life transaction history across all the banks, and in average, there are almost three. In average, one European citizen is using 3 different banks. So now, the banks who roll out the multi-banking use case, they see the transaction history of all the 3 banks. They can better evaluate the client. They see what kind of other products those users are consuming from other banks. Is it lending, mortgage, etc.? They can provide counter offers to switch the lending use case to their product. So there are some benefits. They are not that clear and transparent for the players. But I believe the regulation is supposed not to make it that clear. So it's not the national bank who comes and say, hey guys, to the banks, this is what we're going to do, and this is where you're going to make more money. It's not the role of the national bank. It's the role of the shareholders of the banks. The national banks usually put some kind of guard there and say, hey, these are the rules, and you cannot move out. Unfortunately, yes, you're right, but this is how it is.
Indeed,
Okay.
it is how it is.
Sorry, guys. I would like to hear Petar's opinion on this and see what is the Moldindconbank's perspective on the new directive, and if they see any sort of opportunities for the banking sector in Moldova, and how any sort of implementation of open banking, either in this current form or in any type of future form, could benefit the banking sector here.
Yeah, well, actually, I can just concur with what has been said already. I mean, with PSD2, if you look at historically, very unwillingly, very slow adoption in most of the Europe, especially with the ones with the big banks which prefer doing it themselves. I mean, we all as commercial banks have other priorities. So in essence, this is like exactly if I need to do my KPIs or like do something which is morally excellent and I mean very good for the end user, but will not fulfill my KPIs. I mean, this is the one of the main points which was hitting the banks. But it is how it is. It's regulation. It has to be done, and it is either done or will be done. We all hope for PSD3 to get the flaws which were existing in the current regulation, ironed out, and to give us a bigger maneuver space. But in general, where we see, and this is touching maybe the story which has been already being told by Andrei, it's like, when you're an incumbent bank, you have to think how you approach the fintechs, your enemies or your allies or whatever you do. And I think if, the regulation gives you kind of starting points, and we are always more into the idea of cooperating because, the smaller players, they have bigger possibility on focusing on specific area, which we do not, because we have quite a few things on our hands. So if you want to create an ecosystem, if you want to create a win-win situation and value for your customer, for your clients, this is where the partnerships are, in my opinion, kind of a tool to do it. So, I mean, one of the examples, and not only fintechs, insurtechs, I mean, whatever, because of course, if as the insurtech you can do a perfect 3 products and you focus on them 24/7, and this is your only thing in portfolio, of course you're going to be better than me as a commercial incumbent bank, which does everything basically. So, I mean, all in all, I would say this will give us more of a possibilities than create problems how it can be seen, at the first glance by traditional banks.
Okay, and please.
Yeah, as soon as fintech doesn't want to become a bank, they are not competing with the banks. And I rarely know any fintechs who want to be a bank. You're so strictly regulated. Who want to be like that? It's better to partner with banks. It's better to provide some elegant solutions. And I believe a fintech can now, the big topic on the market is the AI. I believe any fintech with AI experience can support the bank that. And it's not only about like some customer journey or end user journey. It's as well about what kind of problems the banks has. Okay, you have running a big online call centers to support your end users. How we can digitalize it with some AI. Will the bank benefit out of that? Yes, indirectly, because you're going to cut the cost on operational job. Nice. Like I believe that's great. Then the national bank can come in and say, hey, well, there's some personal data shared during those calls, especially when the client is reporting a lost card. Where do you store the data? Who's your vendor? How you handle it? And those questions are fair because, yeah.
No, sorry, Stefan, if you can jump in. I mean, you're basically right. We have the numbers, they have the focus, and really it can be a good marriage. I mean, profitable for both sides. Honestly, not something that has been practiced so much and so often by incumbent banks. But I think this will come. I mean, you adapt or you die, and and this is one of the conversations I had with the head of Revolut like 7 years ago, because he was so proud in how they got the new funding round and it's huge and it's like millions, billions, I don't know what. And I said, okay, but what's next? And because they were all about the UX at the time. I said, what do you do next? And he said, I don't understand. I said, okay, what's next? You're going to go into mortgage loans? No. You see, we have such a perfect system. Our app is the best, etc. I said, yeah, but we will get there too. And what do? You either come into the area which the incumbent banks are doing for a couple of hundreds of years, or you do something different. I mean, of course, Revolut, they evolved. I mean, since then, and they went into some new stuff, and quite well for them. But it's a question. Fintechs are much, in my opinion, much lighter and adaptable to any kind of corporations than the neobanks. This is like, for me, a hard space. But these guys are our partners.
Okay, thank you so much.
If may I interject, Peter, I totally agree with you and also with what Ilia has already said. I think banks need to walk the talk so that what you're saying actually happens. Let me draw from my personal experience when doing digital transformation projects across different parts of the world, ranging from Pakistan to Central Asia, to Latin America. It's hard to convince the management, specifically the IT guys that usually have large number of employees that needs to prove themselves. But at the end of the day, as Ilia said, the small niche focused fintechs can bring huge value to the banks, and what we are recommending them, and it's hard to accept, but little by little they understand that outsourcing key elements might not be a good idea, and maybe they need to focus on on something that it's their core technical stack, but that's it. Any let's say satellite, if you wish, service that is very niche oriented, AI, chatbots, automation of processes, etc. If this can be done by a fintech, so be it. At the end of the day, we are talking a lot about fintech ecosystem. I mentioned earlier, it's about banks, fintechs, and regulators working together. And there seems to be still a mistrust, if you allow me to say, of many banks towards fintechs, because they see fintechs as competitors. And when a fintech actually becomes a competitor of a bank, they are already a neobank, kind of like the example of Revolut, as you rightly put. And even if you take the Revolut example, Revolut offers, and I am a customer of Revolut, I can tell you from my personal experience, they offer seamless and super fast cross-border transfers. But who is behind it? It's Wise. It's TransferWise, now called Wise, because they're not very experienced on that. So they are plugging their systems on a white label basis. The same happens with all Revolut services that allows to buy commodities or shares. Everything is done in the back end by somebody else. So they're a neobank before they were a fintech, and now they're benefiting from fintechs that specialize in particular service. And I think with the same token, banks should try to figure out which parts of their services or their core banking services they want to insource and which of them they want to outsource. And for that, I mean both customer facing as well as back-end services.
Thank you. I would like to stay with you just for a couple of more moments. All these innovations, all these developments in open banking and in digital payments, EQIC and so on, apart from challenges and opportunities, they also reveal some vulnerabilities. And in this case, the cybercrime and fraud risk is it's a big problem. So, Jose, in your experience, I know that you know about cybersecurity. You've been talking at some of our events about it. Tell us some of the strategies and actions that the banks, the startups, the consumers, and maybe the national bank could take in order to protect themselves. And after that, I would like to get back to Alexandra and talk about more about the customers' trust and how the national bank what are the national bank's strategies in order to provide customer protection as well as keeping the pace with the global innovation. So, Jose, if you could start with the cybersecurity part, please.
Sure. Well, needless to say that cybersecurity needs to be a top priority for all stakeholders, not only for the regulator. From the regulatory perspective, as you know, now the EU is implementing DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, that is setting up a higher benchmark to financial institutions. Moldova National Bank could think about implementing similar rules or measures, if you wish. Things about sharing infrastructure. It's interesting. You have SWIFT, customer security program. You have these threat intelligence platforms. They help financial institutions to counter cyber threats. Moldova banks could collaborate on a national cybersecurity hub. There are also, as you may know, other private and public collaborations with cyber threat intelligence collaboration platforms. There is one in Singapore. There are two in Europe. There are two, to my knowledge, again in the US. And I think that a country like Moldova, which is small in size, you guys are still getting a lot of cyber threats, and I think you cannot pretend to be able to cope with all the cyber threats, because cyber crime is not only sponsored by I would say cyber mafias, if you wish, or the deep web and the dark web, but also, rogue states are doing the same. So it's very difficult to cope with, the latest developments in cyber security and cyber threat. And for that, threat intelligence sharing, I think, is paramount. So I would advise to really think of having some international support, or maybe it already exists, but this is something that most European banks are doing. And then one thing that I always insist, Stefan, and you know this from my past events, I always insist that the first line of defense is the human factor, and in particular the employee and the customer. And this is a two-pronged strategy. So if you're a fintech, if you are a bank, you need to think that you need to train your customers with strong security measures to not allow them to use the 000 by default PIN number, or the 1234, which are, or the usual ones like your birthday date and so on, so that they start to absorb that cyber threat needs to be built into their mindsets. And when it comes to employees, exactly the same. You have no idea how many trainings we have to go through in the World Bank Group, and how many cyber threats we get, and we get tested at least 2-3 times or even 4 times a year with dummy spam that many people still click, and then you get a notice that you shouldn't do this because it comes from an unknown source, etc., etc. So these kind of cyber hygiene measures and trainings is something that it's very needed. I understand that I might be stating the obvious. Nonetheless, numbers shows that still employees of banks are prone to cyber schemes, and I have seen and given many examples in other setups and in other panels, and I think this is paramount.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, guys, we need to wrap it up quickly. I would leave the last word to Alexandra if she has something to say about the national bank strategy in order to assure customer protection and sustain the current kind of speed of innovation development, and then we will wrap it up. I have many more questions for you, but this is life. Alexandra, please.
Well, maybe I should add the main safeguard measure that we took for the customers from Moldova is putting in place the regulation for strong customer authentication. The requirements quite harsh for all the players that are actively working right now. Peter is confirming that. Well, let's say SCA requires quite robust authentication methods for electronic payments, but we consider this is quite justified and must significantly reduce the fraud risk and boost the customer confidence. It should definitely goes alongside with the PSP, all the PSP implementing on different levels of fraud detection and fraud prevention systems. So it should be also something that every PSP will do. Yes, Ilia, you would add definitely on that.
I was always wondering why we are not using SCA when people are interacting with an ATM, because many people still are writing down their PIN code somewhere near where the card they store. When they lost their wallet, they lose the money. So a push notification with your mobile banking to confirm the withdrawal is a perfect solution.
Yes, absolutely. And some of the players are doing so, and we need to enforce that for every one of them. But last but not least, we should understand that all these strategies have to go hand to hand with the proper information of the all the audience. This is why we're initiating a nationwide campaign on that, explaining the need of these measures, because we understand that some of the customers will be affected because out of the blue, at some point, they will be required some additional security measures. So they need to understand that this is for their protection and safety of their financial assets. This is kind of main things on that, I should say.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. This is a wrap. Unfortunately, there is no more time. Thank you all for taking part. Thank you all for being so friendly and so open to this discussion and to answering my emails and messages. And I hope to have a discussion with you as soon as possible. I will leave the last word to David, and hope to see you soon. Bye.
So that concludes the first panel focused on the role of banks and fintechs in Moldova in our CEE Fintech tour of UNCHAIN. Coming up next, in the next panel we will host, we will be focused on Moldova again, on the nurturing of the fintech ecosystem of Moldova. Thank you, and